everyone, our topic today is about PageB functions. So the real power of PageB comes from its functions. And PageB has more than 1,000 built-in functions, and in addition, we can also create our own custom functions. So PageB user-defined functions, besides the built-in functions, it's also possible that we create our own functions. So what actually is a function? It is a block of statements that can be used repeatedly in a program. It will not execute automatically when a page loads, and a function will be executed by a call to the function. So this is how we create a user-defined function. So a user-defined function declaration starts with the word function, and we assign it with a function name, open and close parentheses, and then open curly bracket, code that will be executed once this function is called, and then close curly brackets. Okay, so a function name must start with a letter or an underscore, and function names are not case sensitive. Okay, for example, we have this one. We have created a function named WriteMessage, and every time we call this function, it's going to output hello world. Okay, so let's try it. Okay, so here we have the keyword function, the name of the function, and then what will be executed once this function is called. Okay, so let's delete this one first and then run. Okay, nothing happens because we did not call the function. Okay, so how do you call the function? Okay, write messages such as the name of the function here. Okay, or write message and then run. Okay, so let's try our own. Conditional. Let's create another file and let's name this functions.php. Okay, and we will just copy everything that we have here in conditional, paste it in functions, and let's just delete all other statements here. Okay, starting from conditional. Okay, maybe we can start deleting here. Okay, up to here. Okay, and then maybe we could name this one as PageB Functions. Okay, and this one could be okay, we can just name this again as basic syntax. Okay, and okay, so here we're going to write our simple PageB function. Okay, so we start with, of course, PageB. Okay, and then close it, and okay, let's create a function. Function, name of the function, greeting. Let's say greeting. Okay, and open close curly bracket, and any greeting that we wanted to write. Echo, like happy birthday, Dr. Diraha, because it's his birthday today. Okay, so again and close, and let's call the function greeting. Okay, so you can just copy this one, or you can type greeting, open, close, and full stop. Okay, So let's run this. Samp. Okay, start your samp and go to localhost, name of the folder inside your htdocs. In our case, it was still PHP beginners, and this time it's functions.php. Okay, so we have another one here. Okay, let's delete this. Okay, so here is the greeting that we have called using this function. Okay, so it is said in the explanation that the function name is not case sensitive. For example, we're going to capitalize this one, save, and then refresh. So it's still the same because, again, function names are not case sensitive. But if it's spelled incorrectly I mean, then there would be an error. Okay, so let's put it back to correct one. Okay, so this is how a simple PHP function looks like or operates. Okay, so how about arguments? Information can be passed to functions through arguments. An argument is just like a variable. Okay, so arguments are specified after the function name inside the parentheses. Okay, in this case, this is our argument. Okay, how do we know that? Because they are specified after the function name inside the parentheses. This is our function name. This is our argument inside the parentheses. We can add as many arguments as we want, and we can separate them with a comma. Okay. So in this example, there is only one argument, but we can add as many arguments as we want. Okay, so the following example has a function with one argument, fname. When the family name function is called, this is the function family name. We also pass along a name. Example, Jenny. And the name is used inside the function. Okay, so this is what's inside your function. Okay, so when the family name function is called, so family name function is called, we pass along a name, Jenny, and the name is used inside the function, which outputs several different first names. Okay, so the argument here is fname, and every time we pass something into the argument, it is used inside the function. Okay, for example, here, every time okay, so let's just change this to De La Torre or something. Okay, so we have here our function name, family name. This is the argument. Every time we call the function here, it's going to look for an argument which we're going to pass here in this fname, or the variable or the argument. Okay, so let's put an fname here which will be passed into the argument. For example, Russell or Dean. Okay, so this argument here will be used inside our function. Okay, and we can also add as many as we can. Okay, so James, Harry. Okay, so this is how PHP function arguments work. Okay, so let's try another one here. Okay, so we're just going to copy HR and another header. So this is going to be PageB function arguments. Okay, so let's create our own PHP tags here. Okay, so we can create another example which would ask the function to pass an argument which is an address, for example. Okay, so function keyword and then address, and open close curly brackets and echo an address. My address is something that we pass here in the function name, which is an argument. Okay, so let's name our argument as add. Okay, or my address. Okay, and something that we pass in here should be used inside the function. Okay, and for example, okay, let's try to run this one. Okay, so when we run this one, there's an error. Okay, where is it? Oh, we have another closing tag. Okay, save. Okay, so nothing prints out because we did not call the function. Okay, so let's call the function here. Okay, so let's call address here, and okay, let's save this one and try to run the program. Okay, there's a fatal error because it's looking for an argument. Example, my address is Barangay 3, Tagalan. Okay, and save and run. So my address is, which is the string here plus the variable or the argument which we pass from this address, from this function that we called. Okay, so this is just a basic example of using PageB function arguments. Okay, so let's proceed to the next one. Okay, so here there's another one which has a function with 2 arguments. Maybe we can put another example here. So supposing we have 2 arguments, we have my name, and separated with a comma. Okay, space, and let's just echo it here. My name is, and then we're going to change this into my name, and here we will just write our name example. For example, my name is Harry Potter. Okay, and maybe we can BR here. Echo break. Okay, save and run. Okay, so my name is Harry Potter and my address is Barangay 3 in Magalana. Okay, no, it's in London, so we're going to change this. It's somewhere in London. So instead of my address, it's like we're going to put I live in. Okay, my address. Let's put. Okay, so my name is Harry Potter and I live in London. So if you're going to add another argument here, you can just put a comma, and also here you can put a comma and then type another item there. Okay, so that's it for passing arguments into the function. Okay, so let's proceed to the next. PHP is a loosely typed language. So in the example above, we did not have to tell PHP which data type the variable is. So in this example, we did not tell PHP that this variable here is a string, right? So we did not tell PHP that this variable here is also a string, or if we put an integer, then we did not declare an int or something here because we do not have to tell PHP which data type the variable is. It automatically associates a data type to the variable depending on its value. So since the data types are not set in a strict sense, you can do things like adding a string to an integer without causing an error. Okay, so in PageB 7, in the newer version, the type declaration was added. This gives us an option to specify the expected data type when declaring a function, and by adding the strict declaration, it will throw a fatal error if the data type mismatches. Okay, so we have here the example. Okay, so we have the function name is add numbers, and then we declared integer $a, or our integer a, variable a, and integer variable b. Now we're going to return the output of a plus b. Okay, so this is the example. We're going to run it. Okay, here's the explanation. Okay, we have our function add numbers. Then we declared an integer here, which is a and b. Now we're going to return the value which will be the result of a and b. Okay, so we're going to echo it. Echo and call the function and the arguments. Okay, so you have 5 and 5 days. Now, since strict is not enabled, 5 days is changed into integer 5, and it will return 10. So you can write here 12, and still it would add 5 and 12. It's because we did not declare it as strict. Okay, so since strict is not declared or is not enabled, 5 days, or let's say 12 days in our example here, is changed into integer 12, and it will return 17. Okay, so meaning it will still treat 12 days, which is supposed to be a string, as an integer because we did not enable strict. Okay, however, to specify strict, we need to declare strict types equals to 1. This must be on the very first line of the PageB file. So it's going to be on top of your PageB file. Okay, so this will tell the program that it will only accept integer values such as 5 and not 5 days, which is a string. Okay, so let's try it. Okay, so there's a fatal error because it's gonna treat 5 days a string and not an integer. It's looking for an integer and 5 days is not an integer. Okay, so we need to change this into just 5. Okay, and run. Okay, however, if we put quotation around this 5, it would mean that this 5 here is still treated as a string because we enclose strings in quotation marks. So we have to remove it so that it's going to treat it as, or read it as, an integer. Okay, so maybe we can just copy this one. Here, or yes, this one. Okay, so that is PageB as a loosely typed language. Okay, so maybe we can just copy this one here and let's delete this one. Okay, and here we can copy this one and paste PHP. What went wrong? Oh, post PHP. Oh, no. It's inside our PHP script. Okay. Paste. Okay. So and here is strict is enabled. Okay. Okay, so just copy this one and B and 5 days. So in this part here, it's going to produce an error. Okay, so let's try to run the codes. Of course, everything will be an error. Okay, so let's change this into just 5. Save and run. Didn't declare add numbers. Oh, okay. So we're going to change this one because this is one function named add numbers, and here is another function named add numbers. So we cannot use the same function name because it's going to look for which function are we trying to run. Add numbers, add int. Okay, and add int. Save and run. Okay. A non-whole form numeric. Okay, so here, although in the first part, although here the function is still run, but it gives a notice, which is it's telling us that a non-well-formed numeric value was encountered, which is right here, which is a string. Okay, although it has seen an error here or found an error here, but still it ran the program. Okay, because PHP is a loosely typed language. But if we enable strict, okay, so closing here, 5 days. Okay, so here we did not yet enable strict. Okay, so it's going to output the same. That's why we have to enable strict. Okay, so okay, it's in this part. So we're going to write our script on the very beginning of our PHP file. Okay, so it's going to be on top of the file. Okay, so let's declare it. PHP and then declare. Okay, so let's close it first. Okay, declare strict type is equal to 1. Close to 1. Okay, and then close it. Okay, so let's try to run our program again. Okay, so in our example here, it produced an error because it has found in this portion that 5 days is of course a string, and also here 5 days is also a string. So we just have to comment this line, maybe this one, comment this line, and we hope that this is going to of course produce an error still because we enabled strict. Okay, so in this part, so what we have to do is we're going to change it into the proper type, which is an integer. Okay, so now it produced the correct output. Okay, so what else? So let's learn. So how about PHP default argument value? Okay, so the following example shows how to use a default parameter. If we call the function setHeight without arguments, it takes the default value as an argument. Okay, so we have an example here. We have a function named setHeight, and we need to pass here in this argument a min height, which is declared as an integer, and we have set the min height default to 50. Okay, so every time that we run this function, it's going to pass the values here that we set. Okay, so we have 350, we have nothing, we have 135, and we have 80. Okay, so in the case that we do not set any value here, it would still give us the default value, which is 50, because of course we have set a min height here, which is in a value of 50. Okay, so let's try to run this example. Okay, so I have HR, and just copy this one and paste and rename, and okay, so here we have a function, right? PHP. Okay, so we're going to write a function named example set width. Okay, so the width would be passed an argument here, which is in the form of an integer, and we're going to put a variable or an argument which is min width. Okay, and we assign it a value of 20. Okay, so let's echo something here. The width is okay, and any value that we're going to pass here. Okay, and just put a break. This is the break. Okay. Okay, so let's just run this one without calling the function yet. Okay, so run. Okay, it did not output anything. Now let's call the function. Set width into, let's set width into 20. Okay. Or 200. Okay, save and run. Okay, so the width is 200. Okay, however, if we did not set any value here, it's going to remove 200. Okay, on the second output, okay, so it's going to set the width into 20, which is the default value here. Okay, in the absence of a value in the function that you called, it will use the default value which you declared. Okay, so this is PageB default argument value. Okay, so how about PageB functions returning values? What about returning values? So to let a function return a value, use the return statement. Okay, so in our example here, we have function and the function name is sum. We're going to sum up x and y. Okay, so we're going to perform an operation here. X plus y is equals to z. Now we're going to return z, which is the sum of x and y. So how are we going to do that? Okay, so we're going to echo, okay, echo whatever value you want to add up. Okay, so supposing you have 5 and 10, so the sum of 5 and 10 is, of course, its output. Okay, so 5 and 10 is equal to sum of the value which you passed in this function. Okay, so same with this. Okay, so I'll just delete the rest so to make it easier for us to understand. Okay, so let's echo the sum is. Okay, so the sum is 15. Okay, so because you have 5 and 10, let's put space here. Okay, the sum is, and then we're going to pass the values here in this argument. Okay, so the sum of 5 and 10, so it's going to substitute x here, which is 5, and y here, which is 10, and it's going to assign the value here at the variable z. Now we're going to return whatever the result of the sum of x and y here in the variable z. Okay, so we're going to return z. Now we're going to call the function sum with the values in the arguments, which is 5 and 10. Okay, so now it's going to call the function sum and it's going to output z here. So we're going to return z here in this function. Okay, so that is how we use return. So maybe we can just copy this one. h2, okay, and copy PageB function returning values, and the one which we just made, okay, here, and save. Okay, and run. Okay, so the sum is 15 we have here. Okay, so we have the sum is 15. Okay, and how about returning type declarations? So PHP 7 also supports type declaration for return statement, like the type declaration for function arguments. By enabling strict requirement, it will throw a fatal error on a type mismatch. So to declare a type for the function return, add a colon and the type right before the opening curly bracket when declaring a function. Okay, so in the following example, we specify the return type for the function. Okay, so this means that since we have here our function which is add numbers, and it requires our variables in float, meaning floating point numbers that is with decimal, it's going to also require the output or the return value in a float format. Okay, so let's try this one. Okay, so that is 6.4. So however, if we're going to okay, so however, if we're going to change the return type into an integer, it's going to produce an error because we said here that like with the type declaration for function arguments, by enabling a strict, it will throw a fatal error. Okay, so it's going to throw a fatal error because the sum of 1.2 and 5.2 will require a floating point number and not an integer. That's why it throws an error, because again, in PHP return data type declaration, it requires the data type which you declare as strict. Okay, so if the output is in an integer form, then it's going to look for an integer value, and if it is in a floating point number, then we have to change the data type here into a float. Okay. Okay, so let's add it here in our PHP file. And copy the titles. I'll copy the title here and paste, and you can just copy what we did here. Okay, from this. Okay, so PHP and okay, save, and let's try to run it here. Okay, so you have 6.4. Okay, and what else? We have passing arguments by reference. So in PHP, arguments are usually passed by value, which means that a copy of the value is used in the function, and the variable that was passed into the function cannot be changed. So when a function argument is passed by a reference, changes to the argument also change the variable that we passed in. And to turn a function argument into a reference, the ampersand operator is used. Okay, so for example, so we use a pass by reference argument to update a variable. So we have a function here named add5, okay, and we use ampersand and the argument, which is value. Okay, so value plus equals 5. Okay, so now in this example, okay, so now we have our function here, which is add5. Okay, and in this function we pass a value by reference, or we pass an argument by reference, which is here in this argument. Okay, so every time this function is run, the value here, or the argument here, is used. And in our example here, we have value plus equal to 5. So every time we call the add5 function, in our case here we have num, we use num, okay, which is in essence, the value here is 10. Okay, so every time it is run, it is used here, so that becomes value, okay, which is in essence, this is 10. Okay, so that is 10 plus equal to 5 becomes 15. Okay, so this is how we pass arguments by reference. Okay. Okay, so that would be all for functions. See you in the next lesson. I hope you have learned something. Thank you.